Hey guys, now that we've covered the argument from Callicles, it's time to look at how Callicles is rebutted by Socrates. So in this little video, we're going to do our best to construct a basic understanding of Socrates' argument and how it rebuts what Callicles has just said about might being right, superiority, that kind of thing. Okay? So our success criteria, what are they going to be? Well, we're going to, number one, explore this time the ambiguous definitions of some terms, because what we're going to look at is how Socrates quite cleverly exploits the different interpretations of different words in order to generate a rebuttal. Okay? Then we're going to then look at how, again, premises that have been provided by Socrates are put together to form a rebuttal that contradicts what Callicles had said. Okay, so just have a look at these two goals. Quickly score yourselves at the score yourselves 1 to 4. 1 being I have no idea what you're talking about. 4, I've already read this. I've already seen this. I can be at a 4. And then once you've done that, have a look at this picture. If you don't know who they are, this is a picture of lots and lots and lots of different people. How does this picture make you feel? Because the way that you actually respond to seeing this picture can kind of help you understand the way that both Callicles and Socrates would respond to the idea of the masses. Okay? All right, so ironically, when we move into this section, that's between 486D and 491D, we first encounter Socrates is engaging in a bit of rhetoric himself. And the reason why that's ironic is because before we started reading this section, I told you that in sections that we haven't read, that he dismisses rhetoric as some kind of sham. It's the antithesis of philosophy, which is the process of uncovering truth, whereas obviously rhetoric is the process of using knowledge, information, wit, whatever, in order to achieve another purpose. So it's almost like it's practicing deceit. But of course, he employs a persuasive device, I think, that helps him engage Callicles and make Callicles more receptive to any arguments that he's supposed to be using. Okay, so at the start of this section, Socrates says something which is a little flattering to Callicles. He says, "It is delightful that someone like you, Callicles, who has a great deal of knowledge, the right temperament and right character, can, help me test or put to the test." Sorry, guys, people walking in and out of my room. Can help me put a test or can help me generate a test that helps me assess my own particular theories. And in the process, then, Socrates then starts questioning some of the arguments that have been given. Okay, so that's what starts at the start. We don't really need to know this. We just need to know that this is a bit of a technique that's being used. He uses flattery here. He says it's great to see you've got knowledge and great to see you've got the right temperament and character and honesty to help me put my theories to the test. So let's do that. And the real logic starts coming. It starts coming out right now. So he starts questioning this idea of might is right. Because if we remember, it was Callicles' argument as he appealed to natural law, not law by social convention, but natural law, that in nature, it's the strong, the superior, who tend to get the lion's share of what's available to them. So it's only right that the strongest, the superior, the most witty, the clever, should get the majority of society's rewards. It's just a natural process. And then remember quite clearly too that he said that most people aren't superior. Only a few are. So the masses have come together to protect themselves against, this is really important, to protect themselves against the more superior few. And they put in place social conventions and social codes that prevent the strong from achieving what they can. So, from his point of view, socially constructed law and conventions completely contradict naturally occurring conventions or things that are natural because they are designed to protect the masses. So I think you should probably recap on that and take a note, just record it. Okay. But then we get a really clever argument from Socrates. And it's actually quite clever because then Callicles is kind of forced to make a few adaptations or to change his argument so much. So the first thing he says is, look, let's take your point of view. Do you agree, Callicles, that better, superior, and stronger are all synonyms? Do they all represent the same thing? And of course, Callicles is going to say yes, because he's thinking the select few who are stronger, better, superior, are the ones who are punished by social conventions. So he's saying, yeah, that's true. But then Callicles quite cleverly says, well, look, if so, then that means the masses are better, superior, and stronger, because collectively they are better, superior, and more stronger than the individuals who are supposed to be at the top. Their collective numbers and their collective strength gives them the capacity to take what they believe to be the lion's share. So it's actually quite natural for us to have social laws that protect the interests of the masses, because that would fit into our understanding of natural laws, where you said that the strongest should protect their own interests. That's because the masses collectively are the strongest. You need to take some notes. So here we have a picture of what Callicles' face may have looked like when he had to grudgingly accept that argument. He couldn't really disagree with the argument. He said, you know what, yeah, look, I have to give you that. Yeah, I see where you're coming from. So he's saying, again, if the masses have the numbers and they are collectively stronger, it is natural for the masses to put in place conventions that protect their own interests. Therefore, natural law and these social laws that you think are there to stop the superior from achieving are actually helping the superior achieving, are actually helping the superior achieve, because the superior are the great numbers of the masses. Collectively, they are the strongest and the most superior. And of course, Callicles is a bit dumbfounded by this. So he realizes, oh, maybe then I need to rephrase my argument. Maybe what I need to do is I need to define the superior as the clever. Take a note. By that, he means the superior are the clever minority who are able to quite easily climb at the top of the hierarchy and achieve what they need to get achieved. They're not necessarily the strongest, which is what happens when you consider what would be the strongest, which in this case is the collective strength of the masses. For his reasons, he tends to think that the clever, or being clever, is by distinguishing yourself as one superior person out of many. Okay? To which then Socrates does something. Now, you could argue that we're coming up to a thing which is called a logical fallacy, and we'll explore what I mean by that in a minute. But he questions this definition of superiority as cleverness. He basically forces Callicles to see situations where you can be superior, but not very clever, because superiority has very ambiguous definitions, right? It has, and by ambiguous I mean that it's open to many different interpretations. And this fact that he's exploiting the ambiguity of what superiority means is forcing Callicles then to redefine it again. Now, when I was talking about a logical fallacy here, we talk about ambiguity in terms, ambiguity, the ambiguity of certain terms, confusing, what's the word I'm looking for? Confusing the argument, all right? So let me type one up here, and I'll do it without any colors. I'll try and figure it out as we go, which is never really that good, all right? So if I say, and you can see the logical absurdity to this argument, if I say he stole your heart, right? Thieves steal. He is a thief, right? This is what we call the fallacy of equivocation. The first premise is pretty logical. The second premise is pretty logical, but in this case, stealing has a slightly different interpretation, okay? It means something different. So when we try and marry these two premises together and claim that he's a thief, we've committed an act of we've basically, we're guilty of the logical fallacy of the logical fallacy of equivocation. All right. Now, I don't think that that actually happens here, but it is something to watch out for. I don't think Socrates is guilty of it, but when we read him, just think about whether or not he is guilty of maybe mixing the two differently intended interpretations of a word to come up with another conclusion, because that could definitely be definitely be a possibility. Okay. But in any rate, he explores the different definitions of superiority and he forces Callicles to concede that there are situations where you can be superior but not be clever. And I only brought this up to get you to think more logically about his arguments, but I don't think, and I'll say this again, I don't think that Socrates is guilty of the fallacy of equivocation. I think that he's perfectly logical in doing what he's doing, but you have to make a decision about whether or not he's guilty of it when we read the text. And from here, then Callicles says, look, I have to then redefine my term of superiority. To me, superiority is cleverness, but it's cleverness that allows you to manipulate and get from society what you need or what you want. So it means being clever, but being clever in a political sense. Being clever in a political sense, but also having the wisdom and or the courage needed to achieve the policies that you want to achieve. And that's where we finish. We finish us off with that definition, okay? So quickly, go back to these. Have a look if we've explored ambiguity. You should know that we explored the ambiguity of the term superiority. That was a major thing that came into play, forcing Callicles to redefine his definition of superiority. And then we need to look at how all the terms were connected together and all the premises were connected together in order to generate an argument and a rebuttal. If you can see that, then you know that you're doing quite well. Cheers.